welcome to episode 39. I'm Katie.
I don't know why my brain was like 69. That's not. I'm Garrett.
It's because of all the Twinkie sex.
So vile. That's one of those like keep that away from the AI art generators. Keep it very far away.
But also, if somebody else wants to do that and then just send
Don't.
us the pictures so that it's on your
Then don't.
IP address and not ours, that'd be great.
That's how we wind up on a watch list.
Well, we're probably already there. After that essential oils episodes, after
That's
those
true.
essential oil episodes, I'll speak words. Whatever.
I was struggling with word pillow before, so
That's true.
no judgment.
Um,
Like bad word finding.
Yeah, so today we are finally discussing our personal experiences with dieting and diet culture. So, obviously, right at the top, if that's not something that you're comfortable hearing about, we will be talking about like dieting and probably like types of exercise.
And
different-
definitely many forms of disordered eating.
Yeah, so if you're not in a space to hear that, totally fine. Probably okay to skip this one in its entirety if you're not cool with it. But otherwise, thanks for being here.
You sounded like Kermit just now.
I know. I heard it in the beginning of the episode that came out this week too, and I just was like, yeah.
So you were so excited that you sounded like Kermit. You did another Kermit in response. That's great.
Yes. Yep.
So the way we kind of approach this, usually we're kind of like research intensive with things. This is more anecdotal and conversational, I would say.
Yeah. I did do some research, but none of that will be in the show notes for today. Because it's nothing that you can't find on Wikipedia,
right,
for the most part, that or to some extent what's common knowledge with some of this stuff. So
right.
Yeah, so speaking though of candies from the 90s and early aughts, you remember the like proliferation of 100 calorie packs?
Oh yes. Like those little Oreo things and the Chips
they
Ahoy.
had them for everything.
Yes.
Like sweet cookies, and then also like potato chips and pretzels and like anything under the sun. Crackers, like Wheat Thins had them, and they were these like they were like the size of like Golden Grams. They were so small.
They were like chiclets, but snack food.
And they're like, now I'm satisfied. Thanks for teaching me portion control.
Yum. Thank you for that half of a bite of an Oreo.
Yes.
Yum.
Yeah.
Of a dry Oreo without filling.
Because it's the size of like a thumbprint. So it's not even like you can't dip it in milk, which is arguably the best part of an Oreo. But
Oreos and milk.
So good. I did get some cookies and cream ice cream today when I got my limeade. So
candy cigarettes. That's the other thing I was thinking of that I was not coming to mind. Oh, that was
we
driving
never
me
really
nuts.
used those. A cousin of mine had them a lot and thought they were like so cool, and now he's a heavy smoker.
So it worked.
So yeah. Congratulations, like Philip Morris. You did it.
Minty and like chalky, and I loved them. I didn't get them very often, but I loved them.
I didn't like those. I liked I want to say they're called Necco wafers, maybe. They're like large Smarties.
Yuck.
But like, so it was like the size of a Eucharist from church for those of us, any Catholic listeners. But it was like if you sucked on it enough,
if it was pure sugar.
Yes, and so like the outer coating was harder, but then if you like sucked on it or like bit into it, the inside was like a really granular sugar. So it would like.
Is that what happens when you do that?
Yeah, when you bite down, it dissolves into a granular, soluble filling.
I couldn't stop myself. We've been gross so far. Sorry, everybody.
Yeah. I mean, so here's the thing, guys. Well, you should know, in addition to that trigger warning we gave, it's also Friday night and we're recording remotely. And I would say that we both kind of had, you for sure more than me, had a week. I just had a full week.
Yeah,
Nothing
no,
like bad
it's
happened to
been a
me.
rough week to the point where, I'm hoping bad things happen to other people at this point. Like, "Hey,
Fair.
universe, I think I've had my fill. If anything else comes up, no thank you. Please give it to someone else
Reasonable.
because I would not like any more bad things."
Yes. So similar to our tarot episode, you will get a lot of innuendos today because we are at the end of our work week
Oh,
and
yes. Tarot, yes, I really couldn't stop myself, so yes, that's
no,
what's
you
gonna happen
couldn't.
tonight. That's
um
Yeah, I had, like, intended to be looking for, like, Snackwell, Slim Fast type
mhm.
foods, or, like, there's some Atkins ones specifically that I was thinking of, like, snacks and stuff that they were recommending, and I just started down that baby bottle pop thing, and then all I could think about was baby bottle pop, so,
One
um
of the like jingles that I got stuck in my head a couple weeks ago was FREE, that spells free, creditreport.com, baby. Saw
Oh,
an
yeah, yeah,
ad
yeah.
on my TV, thought I'd call, but I was too lazy.
I was waiting for more of that. Is this like
um
that Christmas song that I was like, "That's not real, Katie, that's not a real song,"
mhm.
and was immediately corrected by multiple people. "Oh, yes, it is."
Yeah, you you get Britney Spears' name back in your mouth, bitch.
Oh. Yeah,
So what
we've
was
been
your first
talking
Oh,
about
go ahead.
doing this episode for so long. We've literally had it on our list since we
Since we started.
thought of the podcast, so
Yes. Yeah,
long time
no,
coming.
it's true. It's been a long time coming, and I thought it was, um I guess I would say I kind of, like, put my foot down after the essential oils episode because there was that crazy rabbit hole that I went down with this, like, diet essential oil pill to take,
Yes.
which, like, I could just totally see myself trying it
Yeah,
for the sake of trying it,
yeah,
um, and the reality is that, like, that could be real fucking dangerous and, like, actually
yeah.
harmful to your gut, um And so it was just one of those things where I was like, "Okay, no, no we've talked about it enough, now we actually have to talk about it."
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So, yeah, it was just time.
Yeah.
So that being said, what was the first time you remember being aware of your weight in a negative way?
Mm, so I would say I hit puberty really young. So, like, I started filling out when I was, like, 8. So I would say that's probably when that started. Because I was always, like, before that, like, a skinny little kid.
Oh, okay.
Um, or, like, that's, like, a healthy,
Yeah.
normal, um, kid, until I hit puberty.
I think I was aware of my body in puberty, but I still because I was seeing a pediatrician, I just, like, took pride in the fact that I was above the average for height and weight, and I took that as, like, a point of pride because 'cause I'm an idiot, I guess, or, like, didn't understand, like, it's good for babies, but at a certain point, that's
Yes.
probably not
Yeah.
something that you should be super proud of.
They're like, "No, we don't want you to be 95th percentile now. Only when
Right.
you were a year and a half."
Right, and, like, yeah, like, my brain was like, "Well, 95 in spelling is good, so therefore
Yeah.
95 in
I mean,
height and
for a
weight
kid,
is good."
it's reasonable, which is, like, I feel like part of why it should not be a conversation had with children,
Totally.
because it it is something, like, I think it's very easy to assign value to it.
Mhm.
So, for a little kid where things are much more black and white and they're still learning, like, that everything's gray, of course, that's like well, 95 is great.
Right.
Why would I not be shooting for the 95th percentile on something? You're making me do
Right.
these goddamn
Like, I'm
presidential
not even trying. Look how good I
physical
am at
fitness
this.
tests. Yeah, where you want me to be in the 95th percentile, so or the I don't even
Right.
know, or the 5th per I don't even know how those I don't remember.
No,
I think I
totally.
blocked
Like,
all that out.
I remember for the presidential fitness test, we had to do a pull-up,
Oh, I
in
remember
front
doing
of the
pull-ups.
entire class, like, one at a
Yes.
time, and I couldn't do it. Like, I've never been able to do a pull-up, not even when I was at my,
Yeah.
like, strongest, thinnest, healthiest, quote, unquote, was I ever able to do a pull-up. I just do not have that kind of, like,
Like,
distribution of
the
muscle mass in my
only
body.
even when I was, like, at my fittest and I was, like, lifting a lot and, like, doing pull-ups, I was doing like, assisted, like, with a band.
Mhm.
So I've never been able to do a strict pull-up, ever.
Which is bananas that they were, like,
And if I did, it was,
asking
like,
children to do
one
it.
that I was training for.
Right.
These were, like, pull-ups that I was, like, training to do, not one that a fucking 9-year-old is just gonna hop up on a pull-up bar and bust out a set of 5, like,
No, like, and
it's not
realistically, I feel
realistic.
like, yeah, if they wanted to make that test, first of all, fun and not, like, a shame thing, just have us do monkey bars.
Oh,
Just,
yeah.
like,
Yeah, yeah.
have you complete the monkey bars.
Yeah.
Goodbye. Like, do these
No, it
10
was
monkey bars in a row.
much more focused on, like, humiliation and shame, I think,
Mhm. I
than
was really good at the sit and reach, though. I'm very bendy.
I was good at that, and I usually actually did pretty good, like, with the sit-ups too. Um, but that was it.
Sit-ups I was okay with. Push-ups were a nightmare. Did they ever make you have your partner hold a fist underneath your chest
For what?
so that you knew how low you had to get in your push-ups?
No.
Oh my god, that was fucking awful. I was like, Goodbye. I'm not gonna come back up." Like,
I, like, prior to being pregnant, I would do push-ups, like, regularly, and I attempted to do one recently, and I was like, "I used to do these all the time," and
is it just
literally,
like your ass in the air because your belly's, like, propping you up?
no, I wasn't quite at that point, but I attempted to do one and, like, dropped. Like, had to catch myself because I was like, "Wow."
Just do them against the wall, you know?
Yeah, I've been doing them, like, on the counter,
Yeah.
but yeah, it's just, like, it totally doing something like that where I haven't, like, done something and, like, immediately failed in a while was like, "I feel 10. I feel like I'm 10 years old again. I hate this."
Everyone's laughing at me, the dogs are laughing at me.
Yes, everyone saw me do it. I'm so embarrassed. What was the first, like, program that you remember doing?
So, mine was in so fitness program was in 7th grade. The school actually sent my mom a notice that my BMI was too high,
That's fucking wild. That's
and
wild.
yeah, so they offered this, like, exercise, weight loss, I don't remember how they phrased it, program. So before school, I'd get dropped off at the YMCA and do, like, a circuit in their gym and then go to school. And it was, like, a 6-week program, I think, um, something, and I mean, first of all, I was by far the thinnest person participating, but I think maybe I was one of 4 kids who did it. So, like,
Did they all go to your school?
mhm,
Oh my god. So, the 4 people that are there all know that they got this same letter.
mhm,
Who sent the letter?
the school.
Get the fuck out of here.
Yeah, it was wild. And so that was, like, the first time that I remember like, understanding that my body was a problem. Because up until
Yeah,
that
yeah,
point,
yeah.
like, I hadn't exercised with purpose or,
Right. Because you
um
were a kid.
yeah, no, I was 11 and 12, like, it wasn't
Yeah. It completely, like, strips away, like, the being a kid factor.
the fun of exercise, like,
Right. It
exercise can
immediately
be fun, it can
makes
be
it a
play.
problem that you're responsible for as a
Yes.
kid.
Yeah, and, like, to her credit, like, my mom was always really good about kind of, like, doing these things with me. So it
Mhm.
was very, like, on the days that she could at the time, I think she was working the day shift, so she would come to the gym with me and, like,
Mhm.
do the workout. So, like, she made it, like, a part of our family routine,
Right. Which is,
to
like, a
do
more
this.
successful approach for something than sending a fucking letter home from the school.
Right,
I can't get
and
over that.
I mean, I think probably at the time my BMI was 26,
Right.
and 25 is the limit of the healthy range or something like that, or I was at the limit. I was at 25, I don't know. It
Oh
was
my
fucking wild.
god.
But
That
this
is
was,
wild.
the era of No Child Left Behind, and
Right.
obesity is killing 300,000 Americans a year,
Right.
and that whole thing. So it was like, wow, you know. And on my dad's side of the family, obesity is prevalent. So, like,
Mhm.
I can understand my mom being like, okay, well, if she clearly takes after her father's side of the family, so this is something we've got to head out at the pass.
Mhm.
But I wasn't really inactive. Like, I had gotten
Right,
my
you
black
like, you
belt
were
the year
doing sports
before.
and stuff.
Not really, not at that time. I had gotten my black belt the year before, and was kind of just like doing my own thing. But I wasn't like, I up until that point, I enjoyed gym class. Like, I enjoyed those things. And then after
Mhm.
that, I just remember it being um, like, not thinking that like gym was a test, but like it sucked the fun out of it. That's all.
Yes. Yeah, because there's definitely, like, I know as a kid, there was, like, a turning point where it went from this, like, fun place that we would go where we were, like, playing, like, structured games
Yeah.
and things like that to you're, like, a bigger kid and you're doing these presidential fitness things and they're making you run laps. Like, I know we had to run, like, they would want us to do, like, a mile run, and when
Mhm.
you were running past the whole school was on one floor. You were running past all the classrooms.
Mhm.
There was a sidewalk, so you're just, like,
Mhm.
everybody can see you huffing and puffing and sweating. So, it's like when you crossed that threshold, then it turned into, like, where I felt like there was a performance element to it and there was judgment associated and, like, ranking, and that's when it turns into, like, who's getting picked last in gym class.
Right. Which, it's almost like it feels like it can't help but have been deliberate to have that transition happen when everybody's going through puberty. Everybody is so much more aware of their own bodies, and
Right.
like we've talked about, like, you're going through all these changes and you feel so isolated even though everyone around you is going through the same thing.
Right.
And then you're put into these situations. Like, my mom has said for years that she still believes that phys ed classes should be separated between boys and girls.
Which they weren't for
Um,
me until high school.
Mine were never separated.
Oh, yeah, you
And
know what? High school was only sometimes,
I think that
now that
that's
you say that.
reasonable, like, to
Yeah.
have that separation. I don't think from, like, a competition perspective, because like, I don't really care if I'm competing against a boy or a girl, but I think being able to, like, I'm not worried about, like, "Oh, do I look cute in front of Jeff?" or, like, whatever.
Right,
Like, I'm
because
not.
that's when that male gaze awareness starts to
Yes.
happen, is when you're at
Right.
that age. Yeah.
Right. I mean, like, obviously, that doesn't work so well for, like, lesbians and gay men, but, like,
Right.
or gay boys, but, for the most
The
part.
way you said that was just
Well, gay men are not in phys ed classes.
it makes total sense. It just, like, struck me as very funny because it's after work and
I mean, to be fair, I didn't say lesbian girls, so yeah. I mean,
and, like,
the
it's
lesbians who are minors.
and I think there also is, like, an element of, like, then it becomes a what about people that are, gender nonconforming or something, but I do feel like there was very much an approach of I feel like when we were kids, like, comfort level was not a factor in anything.
No,
Consent was not a factor in anything.
no.
So I do think, like I think things are improving as far as that goes, like, there is more of a conversation about, like, making sure that someone's comfortable and understands something and is consenting to something before it happens as opposed to, like, Jesus take the wheel. Like, this is what we're doing and you're gonna do it, and I don't care if you're uncomfortable, like, suck it up and get out there.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's, and I also, I mean, to that end, like, in our middle school orientation, the female phys ed teachers were, telling us that, your cramps will feel better if you just exercise, which is, like we've said before, but it's very much
That
like
still
you
makes
just
me
said,
mad.
like, shut up and get out there. Like, I
Right.
don't wanna hear about your complaining. I don't wanna hear that you're in pain.
Yep.
It's like that Jillian Michaels lady on The Biggest
Yes.
Loser, where she's like, "I don't want you to stop unless you throw up, puke, or if you puke, pass out, or die." Like,
Which is like,
that's psychotic.
who, uh, like, are we winning hearts and minds here of, like, getting people to enjoy exercise? Because like, that's something that I did not realize until I was, like, in my late 20s. Like, a way to approach it that works for me, that I
Mhm.
enjoy, as opposed to something I'm forcing myself to do. Like,
Yeah.
I had to change my work schedule for a little bit, so, like, my hours were different, so I couldn't make it to the same gym class I was going to, and I
Yeah.
started going to one that was, like, a little bit later, a little bit longer, and it was a class of men, and it was way more intense, and I could keep up, but I finished and I was like, "Wow, like, this is how I used to exercise, like, I don't like this."
Mhm.
Like, I mean, it's effective, and, yeah, I'm sure I would see results from it, but I'm hating it, and I don't wanna go. So, that is
Yeah.
having the opposite effect.
Exactly.
But
Yeah.
that was the attitude, was like, "Suck it up and get through it." And it always turned into, like, a personal failure if you're not doing well in gym class, or if you're like me and you went to kick the kickball and you jumped over it instead of kicking it. Um,
But you did it was
or
such a good jump.
I I was, like, not an athletic kid, did not get into anything athletic until, excuse me, adulthood. And I couldn't have been less coordinated. Like, just Betty Spaghetti all the time.
I never considered myself athletic or, sporty, really. Like, I kind of somewhat identified with, like, Sporty Spice or, like, the tom girl or tomboy, um, thing,
Mhm,
but I didn't like wearing skimpy clothing is more
mhm,
what it boiled down to. But I think at the end of the day, I am naturally athletic. I was able
mhm,
to pick up on golf really quickly. I can do pretty much whatever sport I want to do
mhm,
without having to spend too much time like perfecting it. I actually am athletic. I
mhm.
just never identified as an athlete because you're having me run a mile with the kid who holds the school record for the mile run at
Right.
sub 6 minutes.
And
So,
kids that are playing, like, recreational soccer, that are on, like, multiple soccer teams, that are
yes.
running and doing, like, cardio all the time, like,
And I think you see it with, like, gym teachers and, fitness coaches as well, but, like, it becomes so clicky so fast that especially in high school, it was so evident which gym teachers coached which teams after
Mhm,
school and which ones had kids in that grade or who were friends
yep,
with that kid, because it wasn't necessarily preferential treatment, but, um, as somebody who wasn't friends with the sporty kid, um, I certainly was outcasted
mhm,
from it and made to feel other and less than, for the simple fact that I didn't do school sport. I mean, I was a cheerleader and did gymnastics on my own time and in my own terms, but, like,
mhm,
you know, it's the kind of thing where it's like, unless you're on a varsity team, like,
yep,
fuck off, or, like, working towards that, and
yep,
like, again, the reality is, like, I think part of it was, like, I knew I wasn't going to be a professional athlete, so, like, that's not where I wanna go in my life, so, like, why would I give a fuck
yeah,
for college if I have this, like, amazing sports degree? Like, I'm not that talented at sports, and I don't care enough to become that talented at sports.
yeah,
So, I'll just hang out and do this other stuff that I enjoy, like
yeah.
art.
I
Like
was so, painfully self-conscious that the thought of trying out for a team or group or doing something, I was like, "Oh, that was, like, an immediate anxiety trigger." I was like, "Oh, no, that sounds like gym class, but worse."
see,
Because the
you say
focus
that.
would go from, like, not being on me to, "Oh, the focus is on me and I'm trying out and trying to perform." Whew.
See, I just had that specific strain of ADHD where I was like, I saw a poster for the freshman cheerleading team tryouts, and I was like, yeah, I'll try that. Tryouts were on Tuesday. I saw the notice on Monday, and I went. And then I
You
made
did
the
it.
team.
That's where the high kicks came from.
Basically, yeah, I do remember that, everybody on the team hated me because I didn't do Pop Warner, and so I was not part of the like, I shouldn't have gotten on the team.
Like,
It was
isn't
just
that one
this
of
whole
those things
thing.
you say out loud and you're like, you just wanna, like, groan. It's like, "Oh my god."
The again, the magic of ADHD is that I was fully unaware that they didn't like me. It's that harmful confidence I have. But yeah, no,
Yeah, there
like, there
was,
were
like,
rumors about
things.
me and all this shit, like, how I was quitting the team and how my mom was pulling me from the team, and, like, somebody in choir was like, "Oh, I heard you had to quit," and I was like, "Why?" But it like, I didn't put it together that somebody started the rumor, like, I just
Ugh. God, I
just
hated high school.
so blissfully unaware. But yeah, like, looking back, it's one of those things where I'm like, "Oh, they were mean to me."
Yeah. Well, you know what? They
Had a good
didn't
time,
like
though.
me. I mean, 3
Joke's on
3 out
them.
of 5, I would still do it again. Um,
Basically.
what
So when did you do your, like, first diet?
um, I was probably like 12 or 13,
Same. Yeah, I
somewhere in
did Weight
there.
Watchers with my mom.
I did, Atkins,
Oh,
which is a great way to, like, lose weight really quickly, be really cranky, lose muscle mass, and then immediately pack the weight back on as soon as you start looking at bread,
mhm.
which was great as a child.
No notes?
I remember, like, I think, like, all of like, at least my mom and I were doing it, but,
So is Atkins just like keto?
yeah, it's all
Like,
different
no
flavors,
carbs?
like yeah, it's like Atkins, keto, South Beach,
Oh, South
are
Beach, I
all
forgot about that.
they're all, like, different flavors of the same, like, super low carbohydrate, and then, like, varying levels of protein and fat, but they tend to be, like, higher in fat, um,
Mhm.
which, I mean, when you think about it from, like, a balanced diet perspective is wild.
Yes.
Um, a South Beach specifically would do, like, there was different phases to it. So you had the one phase where you were cutting out, like, everything, couldn't drink alcohol, you couldn't eat fruit, like, couldn't, eat any, like, pasta or rice or potatoes, like, anything like that, for, like, the first however many weeks, and then the next phase, you could, like, gradually add some things in, but ultimately, like, the what are those called? Like, the exclusionary forms of eating are not they don't
Yeah.
work
Restrictive,
because
yeah.
right, like, eventually you're gonna add those things
You're
back
gonna
in, so,
binge, yeah.
um and Atkins was, like, the same way, like, I wanna say the goal was, like, 20 grams of carbohydrates a day, which is, like,
That's
remember we were
nuts.
talking about that thing, and it was like, "Oh, your brain needs, like, X number of" it's like 150 carbohydrates a day to function or something.
Yeah.
I'm totally talking out of my beehole here. I don't actually
I'm
remember what the
Googling,
stat
don't
was.
worry.
Oh, okay. So yeah, it was just like a and for a, like 12 or 13-year-old,
110 to 145 grams of carbs per day
20,
in order to function optimally.
20. So you would get like low carb bread. You would get like the I remember we would buy like the
You
Atkins. They
also
had
have to,
like
like, avoid tomatoes and onions and, like, bell peppers and shit,
carrots.
like, yeah. The
Carrots
things
are
that
too
for sure
carby.
are not the reason you're overweight.
Bananas are too carby.
Mhm.
Like, and don't get me wrong. That clip of Oprah where she's like, "I love bread," that is me. Like, I would give up every sweet for the rest of my life for the sake of good bread.
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah, that's fair. I would do
and
that.
right,
Ex
it's
as
like,
long as I can have my ice cold limeade in the hot summer.
Did you get my response to your story, by the way,
No.
on the pod? You're like, "What's everybody drinking?" I was like, "Ice water. I'm drinking ice water." No, I do have one of those, Heineken Zeros that I've
Ooh,
been working on, which
nice.
is that's my little treat. It's not as good as that though. Um, so
By the
yeah,
way,
it's just
our
like,
close friends on Instagram saw that story. So if you want to be on
oh,
our
yeah,
close
yeah.
friends list, you have to join our Patreon as a limbo champion.
Be a Patronus.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it just like you would buy that stuff, like they had chocolate peanut butter cups like a Reese's, but
Mhm.
it's full of like
They
sugar
were like
alcohol.
calorie bombs. Yeah. I so at it was like right before COVID, I think. Maybe it was like a it couldn't have been. No, it might have been. I don't know. I think it was right before COVID. I was going to try keto. Because a friend of mine had done it with her boyfriend and she lost like 70 pounds
Mhm.
and she looked amazing. Um, she went up a little bit since then, I think, but not to where she was before.
Yeah.
She still looks lovely,
Which,
and
like,
not that she
maintaining
looked
is
bad
the
before,
hardest part.
for sure. And so I was like, okay, well, my friend had this success, so I'll give it a shot. And yeah, hitting that 20 carbs a day. I think I started my thing at 30, my like carb because I was
Mhm.
like tracking my macros. And I like it was fucking impossible. It was
Yeah.
so hard.
And you're exhausted and you're constipated.
I was just constantly thinking about
Yes.
what I couldn't eat.
Which is why things like that are so ineffective and why they're so short-lived for people.
Yeah.
Because like, realistically, are you gonna go the rest of your life and not eat pasta? Absolutely
Yeah,
not.
actually, so I have it a little bit later in my notes, but when I did Jenny Craig, like that was my biggest issue with it. So I did Jenny Craig in when I was in law school. And on the one hand, if you don't know, Jenny Craig is like basically a meal substitution program. All of your meals are provided by Jenny Craig.
Right, right, right. You're, like, buying the actual food.
Correct.
You're not
And
following, like, a meal plan. You're buying food.
yes, to the extent that it is a meal plan in that you get one meal per mealtime. Like you have a breakfast,
Yes.
like you get
Right.
7 breakfasts a week and 7 lunches a week and 7 dinners a week. Um
That's
so
like those Nutrisystem ones that are always on
yes,
TV, right?
same thing. Yeah. Um so on the one hand, what I liked about Jenny Craig is that you met with your coach each week when you did your weigh in, but they had like a private office that you went into and like closed the door. So you weighed in privately. That wasn't like a
Like
public
a fucking
thing.
human being
Correct.
instead of
So
a sideshow like Weight Watchers.
yeah, so that was nice. And then you had this private meeting with your coach about how your week went.
Sorry.
You
Was trying to,
okay?
like, slide myself up and then my
Garrett wanted to
laptop
show me her
slid
tits.
and I don't have a bra on, so I was like, "Oh boy,
Hey, me neither.
Katie's about to get more than she bargained for."
This is a preview of maternity leave.
Yes. Yes, it is. It really is. Almost too much of a preview just now.
I would say, like, I like being your friend. I would like to be
Yeah.
able to stay your friend.
Please don't do that.
Yeah, I mean,
Please don't.
unless you're nursing, I don't see a reason for you to show me your boob, or if you have, like, a rash that you need help with.
If I'm asking you to put rash cream on me, we have bigger problems going on.
I would hope it's because your spouse is out of town.
Yes, and I can't reach whatever it is,
Yeah, you don't
and
have
my
that
mother
spatula that my mammogram tech had to fondle boobs with that were too tiny. Did you knock over your mic?
I tried to get it closer and then I just caused other problems. I'm just a problem.
Yeah,
So I'm
that's
sorry. So
okay.
you weighed in privately, which
So
is
you
like,
weighed in privately, and then you had this, like, 30-minute meeting with your coach to talk about what was working, what wasn't working, workarounds, yada yada. Fun fact, Jenny Craig is owned by Nestle. So
Get the
Mhm.
fuck out of here.
Yeah. So that's
I hate
like if
everything.
you wanna yeah, if you wanna hate a corporation, Nestle's a good one to hate. They
Yes.
destroy a lot of environments.
And they've
Um,
privatized water.
yes.
They're horrible.
So, but the biggest issue I had with it, because functionally speaking, the idea of having pre-planned meals for the whole week in law school was like
Oh,
a
great.
dream.
Yeah.
Right, like in theory, having my breakfast, lunch, and dinner being microwavable, being already set, I don't have to think
Right.
about it, cool. The problem is that you go out with your friends and you have no fucking clue what to eat. Or I
Right.
was playing on the rugby team in law school, you don't have a microwave in the middle of a rugby pitch, so you can't bring your meal with you.
Right.
Um, so
And like you lose like the education component of it when it's
well,
something they're like shipping to you.
so yeah, I was going to like physical meetings like at a Jenny Craig Center. There's
Mhm. I
one near
forgot that
us.
they had those.
Yeah, there I think it's still open actually.
Oh my god.
Um but so I was like physically going to the center cuz this was also like 2011, 2012, like there was no real Zoom like
Oh, definitely
telehealth
not.
or whatever.
No.
But in any event, so I brought up the fact that like going out to dinner with my friends or forgetting to eat breakfast and needing to grab something on the way or whatever. I brought that up to my coach and she was like, okay, well, normally this is like what we teach you in the maintenance phase, like once you hit your goal weight. But um
In the meantime,
yeah,
don't
so she was
live.
like, this is how you like build a meal, quote unquote. Um like and teaching portions. And so what if I'm remembering correctly, she said that like a dinner was one carb, 1 to 2 meats or proteins, and one fruit or vegetable. And by one, she meant one serving. And a serving of meat is like one index finger worth. So, like, show me the 24-year-old or 35-year-old who is going to sit there and measure chicken wings out by the fingers. Like, I like it was
That's
just totally
absurd.
unworkable to me.
Yeah,
Yeah, like it's
yeah.
just it and to say like, "Oh, I can have one carb and one this and one that," as if like they come in like cubes out from like a machine,
They're literally trying to
like
make
astronaut
it the
food.
same thing as what they're selling you, like the food that they're
Exactly.
selling
And
you.
because the food that you're getting, it's all like put together. It's like a pasta dish with chicken and vegetables mixed in or whatever,
Right.
with like some sort of sauce or like oatmeal with nuts and cranberries and like the oatmeal was fucking delicious. I'll give him that. But like but like it's just and like part of it is that I just had so much trouble conceptualizing like these one carb, one meat, one vegetable things as a serving size. But like I looked it up in preparing for this episode. Apparently, you're supposed to eat their prepackaged foods for every meal until you hit your goal weight. And then you get coached on portion sizes and start weaning yourself onto real food again over the course of just 4 weeks.
Which, like, you're literally never going to be in maintenance because you're not really learning anything.
Right. Like, so theoretically, like if you have
And you're
100 pounds to
restricting.
lose, right. If you have 100 pounds to lose and you're losing it at the safe rate of 1 to 2 pounds a week, for 18 months, you're eating prepackaged foods for 3 meals a day plus snacks that are also prepackaged. Like, you don't get to choose your own snacks on the Jenny Craig
Holy
program, they have
shit.
pre portioned snacks. So, under this plan for 18 months, that's what you're doing. And then over the course of just 4 weeks, you get to like learn how to cook again and prepare food when you haven't prepared food for the past year and a half. Like it's just deranged. It's such a bizarre program. So
Right.
I don't feel so bad that like I was just like, yeah, this is not working for me. But
I would
like
like to know who it actually worked for long term.
not Christy Alley.
Mm. I forgot she was in those. I had a kid say that to me when I was like 11
What?
in the hallway. He goes, "Have you ever heard of Jenny Craig?" As he's walking past me. Never had a conversation with this kid
That's
in
like that
my
fucking kid on a
life.
bike that rode past me one day walking to my car after work, "Are you the girl from Mike and Molly?" And I, like, watch him like, "Hey!"
I hope both of those people have gotten butthole spiders by now.
One can only hope. Yeah.
Yeah. I did
Yeah.
do so I haven't done, like, Jenny Craig. I did do, like, we did Herbalife for a little bit.
Oh, isn't that like
Um,
shakes?
yeah. Shakes, and then I feel like there was another one, and I don't think it was Herbalife, but it was, like, just a different flavor of Herbalife, where you did instead of a meal, because a lot of these there's, like, stages, you know? So you're, like,
Okay.
always shooting to get to, like, when you can eat food again. And
Right.
the first phase of this, you were eating almonds, like a handful of almonds, with these, like, chocolate chalky nuggets that weren't discernible food.
So scat.
Yeah, poop. Um, with,
I know that you don't watch it, but in Friends, Monica had to create recipes with mocklet and, had to make the recipes taste good. And she was like, at the end of the episode, she's like, "I know you might think that these quantities are strange. So I know that it only calls for a quarter teaspoon of mocklet, and it's like an entire pie."
yes, you were
So that's what I'm
subsisting
thinking
on
of.
almonds, and
These chocolate cube flavor squares or whatever
they
they're
called them,
called.
like, Scooby Snacks was, like, the nickname for them,
Oh, so it was
like,
dog food.
pretty much, yeah. It was horrible. Um, and, like, the same thing as, like, Herbalife, like, with the shakes. Like, just and when I started weightlifting and I was in, like, a gym setting, which it wasn't like it was like a classes gym, so it's more
Mhm.
social, I would say, than, like, a regular gym. People were pushing isogenics because a bunch of people sold it.
Yeah.
And I was finally at the point where I was realizing, like, okay, at that point, I was, like, in my mid to later 20s. It's like, I've done all of these different fad diets, and, like, they're not
Mhm.
working, and if I have to, like, buy products, I'm not gonna be buying these products when I'm 70. So, I'm not gonna use them now because I'm not gonna use them forever, so why would I be doing something that's, like, not sustainable? Was, like, my attitude.
Mhm.
Um Which is also when I was doing calories in, calories out, which is, like a different form of a disordered eating. And people were pushing this isogenics, and I was like, it was like really frustrating to me. I was like, no, like I'm just counting calories and exercising. Of course, I was under eating and over exercising, and there was a whole slew of problems with that, which we can talk about also calories in, calories out. But
Yeah, we
that
ought
used to
to
make
because
me
I
really
have
mad.
that after my Weight Watchers notes, my thing on calories. But, um, yeah, when so I did Weight Watchers, like, maybe 4 or 5 times before, or probably 4 or 5 times in total, but in 2014 after law school, I started it again, and I lost about from 2014 to 2017, I lost about, like, 70 pounds, on their Points Plus program.
I feel like that's when I did Weight Watchers for a short time, but I only did the app because the
Okay.
thought of weighing in front of people made I would, like, rather have died, so I wouldn't go in, but I did the app, and I think I was doing Points Plus, so it must have been, like, around the same time.
Probably. Did you have the option to do, like, simply filling, where you could eat from, like, a certain set of like, a certain list of foods, but you could, like, you didn't have to track points?
Yeah, so there was, like, 0 point foods, like
Mhm.
Cool Whip, I feel like, or Jello or
Yeah.
something was 0 points,
Well, you had to
and,
get the
like
sugar-free Jello, but yeah.
yes, and there was a bunch of, like, fruit that was 0 points and,
Yeah,
like,
which is different because the
lettuce.
first time that I did Weight Watchers, so I actually have a timeline here. So, fun facts
Look
about
at you
Weight
with the
Watchers.
timeline.
Yeah, well, when my work got taken away from me this afternoon because I didn't have to do it, I had a little bit of time to, devote my brain power to something else. So Weight Watchers was founded in 1963 by Jean Nidetch, who was a 214-pound stay-at-home mother. She identified as overweight. She called herself that, and she decided to lose weight after a friend of hers asked her if she was pregnant again. Uh,
Not me
the
stepping
60s
into
were
traffic.
wild, man.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
But she lived in New York City, so she went through the New York City Board of Health's obesity clinic and did this 10-week weight loss program. And through that, she followed the New York City Board of Health had this diet that was developed in the 50s called the prudent diet, which was like pretty strict.
Eye
You had to
roll.
eat, which, like, if you know anybody who did Weight Watchers in the 60s or 70s, this is the meal plan that they had. You had to have fish 5 times a week, 2
Oh,
pieces of bread
fish.
and 1 glass of skim milk per day, no alcohol, sweets, or fatty foods. Um, you had to have liver once a week. That was like a common complaint. Um, but basically, like, she and part
Liver?
of this, mhm.
Ugh. Mm-mm. Hard
So
pass.
she lost 20 pounds in this 10-week period on this program, but and part of that program was going to these weekly meetings, but she didn't like how they were run because they couldn't have discussion amongst the people who were actually doing the program. It was kind of like a lecture series.
Oh.
So she stole the meal plan, like, made photocopies of the meal plan that they gave her, and started hosting these meetings in her own living room. And within 2 months, like, over 40 people were meeting in her living room, um, to, like, discuss weight loss stuff. And, like, to the extent that, like, she had developed these different things, like, in their meeting rooms, none of their chairs had arms. So you didn't have to squeeze into a chair. And, like,
Like,
little things
there's aspects of it that are good. Like, making
for sure.
people feel
And
like
there's
there's community and
yes.
can talk to one another and, like, support one another, like, those are good things.
Yes.
Liver is a bad thing. Vile.
um
Side note, I had a coworker one time that microwaved liver and onions. I feel like I've mentioned it before, but I'm just so appalled
I
by
know
it.
that you've told me before, and anytime you say liver and onions, all I can think about is Mo Collins and Michael McDonald in Mad TV as Stuart and his mother. And she's like, do you know the skit I'm talking about?
No.
He's like screaming at her from, like, a distance, like, what's for dinner? And she's screaming back, but, like, her neighbor is right next to her.
Yep.
Liver and onions. And he's like, what? Liver and onions. What? And it just goes on and on and on. But that's all I think of it. Liver and onions. Yeah.
It's vile. And let me tell you, liver and onions microwaved in a small ventless room,
I mean,
kill me.
yeah, fair.
I choose death
Uh
next time.
but I mean, and also famously, within 1 year of first starting her program through the Bureau of Health or whatever, Department of Health, Board of Health, that's what it's called. Um the New York City Board of Health, she hit her goal weight and maintained it for the rest of her life.
Well, like, yeah, like,
So
that's good for you.
right, exactly. So it's the kind of thing where, like, she did do that. And so to
Mhm.
that extent, she ended up founding Weight Watchers International. And then she was its president and CEO and for like 10 years, and then she left because she had made all her money.
Yeah.
Also, Weight Watchers was purchased by Heinz in 1978, the ketchup people. Mm-hmm. Isn't that nuts? Which is crazy to me because, like, we'll get there. So in 1979, so Weight Watchers International was first founded in 1963. By 1978, it was purchased by Heinz. In 1979, Weight Watchers was one of the first to introduce the element of regular exercise as a core aspect of its weight loss plans. Up until that point, it had strictly been diet, not
Yes,
diet
because I
and
feel like
exercise.
even at the point I was doing it, you could, like, get points back by
Yes.
exercising.
Yes. In 1980, they introduced a new dietary plan with 3 options. At this point, I think in 1979 also they included, like, a lacto-octo um, vegetarian option, so you didn't have to have your liver and skim milk.
My god.
Um, so in 1980, they introduced their new dietary plans with full choice, limited choice, or no choice. The no choice option, which was intended to only be followed for 2 weeks, was something more akin to their original meal plan where you could only eat from a certain set of foods,
Mhm.
but you were only supposed to do that for 2 weeks max. Then you had your full choice and limited choice options. And then 1984 was the launch of the Weight Watchers at Work programs where you would weigh in at work and have your meetings during the workday. And 1997 is when we saw the advent of the points system, which I think at this
Oh,
point is
okay.
what Weight Watchers is known for the most.
Right.
So up until that point, it had just been meal plans. Um, but you were cooking your own food for the most part. And they were like teaching you
Right.
portions and like weighing food and things like that up to that point. But in 1997 is when they started the point system, where they had their own algorithm, meaning equation, not AI, so don't panic.
Right,
Uh,
right, right. But there was like a, because I remember like reading the message boards and people were like, 0 points doesn't mean 0 calories." And I remember being like, "What, now I gotta fucking count calories too? Like I'm already doing following the points. And if you're telling
well,
me it's 0 points, then how come I can't eat a
well,
bunch of
there
it?"
really weren't many 0 point foods in the 1997 version. Like a, a lot of vegetables were 0 points, but corn had points, carrots, if
Mhm.
they were cooked, had points. Any starchy vegetable, so peas, that had points. But a primary criticism of that program is that an apple, like an average sized apple, the size of your fist, you'll say, was worth 2 points. And a chocolate chip cookie was also worth 2 points because they were both about 100 calories.
Yeah.
And
It's the same pitfalls that calories in, calories out has. Is the
right.
same
And
things that
so
Weight Watchers did.
that was the kind of criticism because then you're like, well, I've got 2 points left in the day. I've got to hit this points target because that was the whole idea was that you hit your points target. You could earn points by exercising, like you said. So if you wanted to eat a little bit more, then you go for a walk or a run or whatever. You do some sort of activity. And they called them activity points, not
Yes.
exercise points.
Yes.
So you do something to earn more points in order to eat more food, which like makes sense. Um, but yeah, when you're looking at, okay, well, I've got 2 points left in the day. I can have an apple or I can have a cookie. Well, I'm going to have the cookie. Duh. They're the same number
Yeah.
of points. Like, so that was one of the criticisms of it. So 2004, 2008, 2010, 2012, 2014, 2015, 2017, and 2021 all saw changes to the points program in some way
Yeah,
or
I
another.
remember like revisiting it and I was going to do it again and they had completely overhauled it and I was like, "Why are you making me learn a whole new system every time I do this?" I got frustrated with it and I stopped doing it
And
because
so many of their members are like repeat, like frequent flyers.
right, right.
So it's not like you're dealing with these clean slates every time and saying this is the program, the end. But no. And so when I joined in 2014, um, they had this like core plan, simply filling thing where you could eat from this list of foods. And at that point, they had changed their points algorithm so that almost every fruit and vegetable was 0 points.
Mhm.
Um, and so to that end, you could do this simply filling thing where you kind of just eat like more whole grains and like whole foods, like
Mhm.
sweet potatoes and whole wheat bread and brown rice and, you know, whole wheat pasta even, but kind of just eating things that are just more identifiable in their original state. Um, and using that as your list of foods and not having to worry about counting calories because like again, you're really, I mean, barring like a metabolic issue or like diabetes, carrots aren't the reason that you're not losing weight. So it's the
Right.
kind of thing where, you know, and I remember being in a meeting where they said like that's corn isn't the reason you're here. It it's the butter you put on it or that you're eating it as popped corn, not
Yeah.
like just
Right.
corn off the cob.
Right.
Um so I
But the
think
butter
though
makes
that
it
like
so delicious.
that core plan or that simply filling plan is really similar to Whole 30, which I feel like I might
I
cover
never
for
did Whole30.
me neither. So I think I might cover it for a maternity leave episode because I've heard a lot about it and I know that a lot of people do it to try to identify food allergies, I think,
Yeah. Do people
and
still
like
do it?
slowly add stuff in. Yeah.
Huh.
Um, and so I thought it would be interesting to do for one of your maternity leave episodes
Yeah.
because I've never done it either. I just know that it's kind of like no dairy, I think, is like one of the big things, but it's
Yeah.
sort of like you slowly add things in and see if you have like an inflammatory response. So I think a lot of people with like IBS do it, but I could be
Mhm.
full of shit. Um but yeah, like you said, like the meetings offer so much community that I feel like even though you had to like weigh in semi publicly, um it's almost like, I mean, I know that when I was like deep in it and had lost a bunch of weight, it was like, oh, it just gives me accountability because I can lie to the scale at my home. I can't, another person is telling me the number on the scale, so I can't fudge the numbers and da 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 da. And it's like it like kind of it's very like culty. Like
Yes.
they're holding me accountable. I think, first of all, I think the primary reason I stopped being able to lose weight or maintain my weight loss with Weight Watchers is because I got into an abusive relationship with someone who just didn't respect my boundaries around food. However, in hindsight, I also think that the points plan is pretty dangerous because I was never encouraged to really eat the activity points I was earning. So, um,
So you're just
I
under eating.
Well, so when you're getting to a lower weight, like when you start Weight Watchers and you have a lot to lose, you probably don't need to eat any activity points that you're earning. You're probably doing fine. But when you
Right.
get to that lower weight, and especially if you're doing very intense exercise, like weight training or HIIT workouts, that can be super problematic. And when I did Weight Watchers, it was they gave you like a points range, so you had like this range which like makes sense in the idea that like some days you're just not as hungry as others, so don't force yourself to eat to get to that threshold just because that's the threshold that they're saying you have to eat every day. But they'd also say, okay, if you know you have a wedding to go to on Saturday, then save up your points from your little range each day so that on Saturday you don't have to worry about it. You can have a good time. Now, realistically, nobody really overeats at a wedding. You're like talking to people and you're dancing. And even if you do overeat, you're dancing your ass off.
And if you're overindulging in anything, it's probably alcohol.
Yeah.
It's probably not food, but
Right.
it's I think I think Weight Watchers very much was calories in, calories out rebranded.
Yes.
Um because I look at it and I'm like, it was the same. I mean, I
Hmm.
wasn't like there wasn't a coach component to it. Like, really, I was doing my fitness pal.
Yeah.
Um, but it didn't I looked at it like a budget. So, you had like your daily numbers, but then like you would have your weekly, like, oh, you were, the whole week you
Right.
were 600 calories under your goal. And it definitely, it's like the apple versus the chocolate chip cookie. Like, if
Well,
you
I
were
think
hitting
though
your numbers.
they changed though when they made fruits and vegetables 0 points. They also made things like a slice of cheesecake is 30 points. Now, when
Mhm.
I was at my lowest weight, I was getting like 26 points a day. So if I want to go out to dinner and have dessert, like my week is wrecked.
And
Like
they're
it's
billing it to you as, "Look at all this flexibility, that you can still
yes.
eat what you wanna eat, but, like, learning to do everything in moderation," but it's not. It's literally like carrot on a stick. It's
Yes.
like baiting you.
And that's why,
Like,
I mean, like, they never really encouraged me to eat my exercise points or my activity points.
right.
So then at the time when I was at my lowest weight, I plugged it in today to MyFitnessPal. So I was actually eating about 1,100 calories a day.
Yep, that's about
Maybe,
what I was doing.
and that was if I had a protein shake, which
Mhm.
I was doing towards the end because I was doing Orange Theory, which is a high intensity interval training class. So I would have one of those after those classes in the evening before I had dinner, because there were times like I would get home at 6:30, 7 o'clock at night and would need to shower and all that stuff before I ate dinner. So I needed to have something quick that I could get into
Right.
my system. So I would have a protein shake, and I would put, Greek yogurt, non-fat, of course, and almond milk and potentially some PB2. So God forbid I use real peanut butter. But
Oh, I was just thinking about I was making myself a peanut butter and jelly sandwich the other day, and I was like, man, peanut butter was such a divisive thing for me for so
it was
long.
so taboo.
Yes.
Because it's the
Like, it
kind
was
of
the
like you
worst
couldn't
thing you
have a
could
peanut
eat.
butter and jelly sandwich on Weight Watchers unless you wanted to
Yep.
throw 12 points down the drain.
Yep.
And like that
Between
is
2 slices of
outrageous.
bread and the sugar in the jam and the fat and
Mhm.
the peanut butter, it's like so
Yeah.
yeah, it definitely PB2, yep. Which is
And
like it is good in, like, a smoothie or
I
something, but
love it in a
not
smoothie because
yeah,
it incorporates well. But
right.
yeah, so anyway, I was eating about 1,100 calories a day, but I was also during the work week walking a 5K at lunch every day in 45 minutes or less, and doing those Orange Theory classes 3 to 4
Mhm.
times a week. So with those those exercises on a day that I did Orange Theory and walked at lunch, I was burning about 850 calories a day,
Yeah.
meaning I was netting about 250 calories a day.
Yeah.
I don't know how I didn't shut down like my kidneys and like end up like truly ill. Um but I was beating myself up anytime I put like granola on my morning,
Oh,
like,
granola's another one. Even now, I
oh.
eat granola and I'm like, "Oh, that's a naughty thing to eat."
So we're gonna cut this here because it's running a little bit long.
It's almost
But
like we just can't stop talking or that
yeah.
we're doing this after work and we are tired and can't focus.
Potato, tomato, really.
Agreed. Agreed.
But also, we're two women who grew up in the 90s and early 2000s and have a lot of experience with dieting and hating our bodies before we figured out how to like them. So
Well,
we
that's
have
a
a
good
lot
way
to
to put
say.
that.
Thank you.
That's very good. Well put.
So,
You sound like a word doctor.
look at me go.
It's been a while. It's been a while since I called you a word doctor.
But we're gonna pick up the rest of this high intensity interval conversation next week. Thank you. Also, welcome to our newest anklet on Patreon, Emily Babiak. I hope I said your name right. We are so excited to have you on our team and as a member of our anklet gang. So welcome. And if you want to join Emily, you can head over to patreon.com/thebarsankle-high and get bonus episodes every other week, along with a whole bunch of other benefits. So yeah, we'll see you next week. And until then, remember to
Eat when you're hungry.
yeah, eat when you're hungry, because the bar is ankle high.
Bye.
Bye. Thanks for tuning in. We'll be here next Thursday with another episode to tingle your ear holes. In the meantime, the best way to support us is to follow us on Instagram at @thebarsankle-high and to subscribe and leave us a 5-star review on your preferred podcast streaming platform. It seems really simple, but it really is the best way to help us out, especially whenever you can actually write out a review. Great news! We have a new merch store that ships internationally and allows you to customize your merch on an endless array of products. You can head over to bit.ly/ankle-high-merch to check it all out. If you want even more ankle-high hot takes in your life and to have a few dollars to spare, you can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/thebarsankle-high. There's 3 different tiers to choose from: $2 toe rings, $5 anklets, and $10 limbo champions. Everybody gets monthly horoscopes written by yours truly. Anklets get bi-weekly Dysfunction Junction episodes, and Limbo Champions get all of that plus ad-free episodes, and they get added to our close friends list on Instagram. So head on over to patreon.com/thebarsankle-high and join today. Until next Thursday, remember to be kind to yourself because the bar is ankle high.